Well, the justice don't confuse. The people have a justice, but they all move on the spirit choosing method. Hagen does it all. Yeah.
Potential.
That's right. I'm sure they do. Yes. That's correct. Yes, like some can. Their destiny is uncertain. They can be sure only of getting to salvation. There will some trickle up all the way to paradise. And, as they point out, I always like this, isn't it? In the final analysis, it would be hardly proper to use the words greater or lesser in contrasting the destinies of the ascending orders of sonship, like the justice rules of spirit truth. Every such son of God shares the fatherhood of God, and God loves each of his creature sons alike. He is no more a respecter of ascendant destinies than he is of the creatures who may attain such destinies. The Father loves each of his sons, and that affection is not less than true, holy, divine, unlimited, eternal, and unique. And such a love utterly eclipses all other facts. Sonship is the supreme relationship of the creature to the Creator. You know that's true. Given that fact, nothing else means much. And without that fact, everything else could mean nothing.
Let's talk about the universal senses of it.
They're kind of mysterious beings, even to their colleagues. The universal censor is the judgment of the Trinity abroad in the universe. Censors work with divine counselors and perfecters of wisdom, also of Trinity origin. And the three wrote most of the papers in part one. The perfecter of wisdom does exactly what his name indicates. He perfects the wisdom of the past. The divine counselor forecasts into the future. That's why they're more helpful, I think, than any of the others. It takes more to forecast for the physical effect. But a universal censor would take a univac and give it an inferiority complex if it was capable of having such. Because a universal censor can absorb an indefinite, unlimited amount of data and is the complete master of that data, can balance it, sort it, weigh it, evaluate it, and then pass out a decision. And they make this interesting statement about them. The censors are universe totaling personalities. When 1,000 witnesses have given testimony, or 1,000,000, when the voice of wisdom has spoken and the counsel of divinity is recorded, when the testimony of ascended perfection has been added, and like the mighty messengers involved in this thing too, then the censor functions, and there is immediately revealed an unerring and divine totaling of all that is transpired. And such a disclosure represents the divine conclusion, the sum and substance of a final and perfect decision. Therefore, when a censor has spoken, no one else may speak. For the censor has depicted the true and unmistakable total of all that has gone before. And in truth, there is no appeal. It had it. This is it. You see, this is just as if the three ancients of days had spoken. And then it's just as though the Paradise Trinity had spoken. And as it says elsewhere in the papers, these folks, these stationary sons of the Trinity, they're not just finite beings. They're capable of responding to any situation. And if the situation is super finite, they'll cope with it. They sort of roll with the punches. I think they can cope with anything, at least of master universe significance. Whether they could function beyond the master universe, I don't know. And it's a very technical question, because they're a long way from getting to the edge of it. They can function for the foreseeable future. This paper is written by one of the colleagues of the censor, divine counselor. He goes on to say, most fully do I understand the operation of the mind of a perfecter wisdom. Now, he doesn't say, but I would assume he understands his own mind, too. So he understands two out of the three. He understands what a counselor is like and what a perfecter wisdom is like. But I certainly do not fully comprehend the working of the adjudicating mind of the universal censor. It appears to me that the censors formulate new meanings and originate new values from the association of the facts, truths, and findings presented to them in the course of an investigation of universe affairs. It seems probable that the universal censors are able to bring forth original interpretations of the combination of perfect creator insight and the perfected creature experience. This association of perfection and universe experience undoubtedly eventuates a new value in Artemis. But this is not the end of our difficulty regarding the working of the minds of the universal censors. Having made due allowances for all that we know or conjecture about the function of the censor in any given universe situation, we find that we are still unable to predict decisions or to forecast verdicts. We very accurately determine the probable result of the association of creator attitude and creature experience, but such conclusions are not always accurate forecasts of censor disclosures. It seems likely that the censors are in some manner in liaison with the deity absolute. We are otherwise unable to explain many of their decisions and rules. Well, now if this is the case, then we've hit something that would be unpredictable. You see, the deity absolute would react in a timeless way. The deity absolute would react in terms of not only the past and present, but also the eternal future. And if you are going to try to forecast the decision, you're going to frame the decision with a situation that's comprehensible. But the deity absolute will be thinking in terms of the fourth outer surplus as well as the seventh fifth universe, and of what lies beyond the fourth outer surplus. The deity absolute thinks in terms of every when and every place. And that was
transcended between mind and
Yeah.
existence.
They represent the Trinity. And how can you limit the Trinity?
But transcendent of it.
That's right. But I think he understands a part of the Trinity's mind, because he qualifies the statement. I don't understand the adjudicating mind of the Trinity. The totaling attitude of it. The synthesizing attitude, the ability to eventuate a new meaning and new value. That's my concept of the function.
I understand the notion.
Let me ask you a question. Why are there 1 billion of them in Havana? Well,
I
function.
want to ask you what to do.
I think you were wrong, because I don't know the answer, and I get you on the spot there.
One day,
They have nothing to do with it.
they're holding on.
No. Now, undoubtedly, they're going to have a function. But evidently, they only create senses once. And since they're going to need these for the future, they just create what they need for all future time. And it doesn't bother them if they've got a billion universal sensors standing by with nothing to do. Well, they're worried about these fools. Are they kind of conscious? I think so, yes.
But they don't operate on anything.
They're not limited by time. I think you might say a sensor is, he's not a transcendentalist, but he's something like a transcendentalist, in that he knows all about time. But he doesn't have to be limited by time. He might choose to be limited by time. Well, I don't know why they're going to have a function. Well, why don't they congregate them all together instead of divide them all in squares? Well, that's some part. Well, let's say it this way. I'm not for sure they're always residents there, but that's where they have an office. Of course, the eternal days doesn't. And if eternal days leave, Spencer doesn't take over. The Trinity teaches them to take over. That's right.
And that's what I want to get.
All right.
I wish you would, in your own words, describe the way the Trinity teaches them and the inspired Trinity Spirit work on our conscious and superconscious mind.
And there really is on that. The teacher sons are extremely versatile. Being of Trinity origin, and I wonder, are they Trinity origin or Triunity origin? Are they created with the paradise Trinity, or they created the universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit? And there's a difference. I think they
There's a Trinity origin.
I think there's a weasel in here. I think there's a weasel, but I'm not sure. In page 230. They give you an out. Where it speaks of Roman 1 in the Paradise Register. Being is created by all three paradise deities, either as such or as the Trinity. And I've long questioned whether Trinity teacher sons were produced for the cooperation of the two directors. I don't know. That's not important. But I think they tend to lump Triune and Trinity. These beings continue for an eternal days. They're members of the coordinate cabinet of the ancient days. They work down here in the local universes, where the big cheeses in the educational system in the local universe. They're the last sons to minister on an evolving world. When they complete their ministry, we enter the year of light and life. They terminate the last of the unsettled dispensation. They're closely identified with the finalities. They're undoubtedly going out into outer space with the finality. As teachers, they probably have a liaison with the inspired Trinity spirits, who are mysterious even to folks at this level, because no one can perceive an inspired Trinity Spirit except a Trinity origin being. I think I'm right in that, am I not, sir?
Even some of those, they can sense season mechanism. That's how their mechanism
And now they can sense their presence. These inspired Trinity Spirits come and go. The solitary messengers detect them. But I think unless they're assigned to the command of a Trinity origin being, I don't think they're visible to us. Using the word visible loosely. Now, when a local universe is settled in light and light, the union of days stationed on the local universe capital has, of course, a Trinity Spirit assigned to it. And I think he perceives this, or he couldn't be their commander. They are related to solitary messengers because it seems as though, as the solitary messengers are in withdrawal, being withdrawn from service, for reasons that are not germane to this story, their places are being taken by the Trinity Spirit. And this again is a part of a shift from the evolutionary period of development, where single origin and dual origin beings predominate, to settled status and light and life, where more Trinity origin beings take over. From an educational standpoint, there is a close relationship between the teacher sons and the Trinity Spirits. The teacher sons teach consciously. The author of the paper on coordinate Trinity origin beings believes that the inspired Trinity Spirits teach superconsciously. That there's a very great amount of information which, if you were conscious of receiving it, you'd follow it up. And your ego would get involved or something. And so it's got to be given to you in an unconscious or superconscious way. And here's where the inspired Trinity Spirits take up what the Trinity teacher sons leave off. Because their teaching would be highly perceivable by the pupil. If you go to school and a Trinity teacher son is teaching, you're going to know you're in class and being taught. But if a Trinity Spirit is teaching, you'd be supremely unaware of it. Let's see what they're saying here. Page 220, paragraph 5. Well, who's writing this paper? Writing counselor. We know that the Trinity teacher sons are devoted to the conscious enlightenment of universe creatures. I have arrived at the settled conclusion that the inspired Trinity Spirits, by superconscious techniques, are also functioning as teachers of the realm. I am persuaded that there is a vast body of essential spiritual knowledge, truth indispensable to high spiritual attainment, which cannot be consciously received. Self-consciousness would effectively jeopardize the certainty of reception. If we are right in this concept, and my entire order of being shares it, it may be the mission of these inspired spirits to overcome this difficulty, to bridge this gap in the universal scheme of moral enlightenment and spiritual advancement. We think that these two types of Trinity origin teachers effect some kind of liaison in their activities, but we do not really know. Then he goes on to flesh with his opinion. I've talked to people and they said, no, we think you're right. We think this has happened to us. We didn't know it at the time.
Well, that's also happened. Have you ever experienced this happening? You know something, you don't know how to know it.
That's true. Of course, in the case of humans, I think that would be more apt to be a tesseract.
Well, that's what I want.
Or the spirit of truth, which would be quite analogous. Because when you're thought of just to touch or something, you don't think you'd be at all aware of it at the time.
And all of a sudden you know something, you go, well,
When Peter said to Jesus, you're the Son of the living God, Jesus said to Peter, "No man has told you this, but you've gotten this information from my Father's Spirit, who indwells you. And on the relationship of the Spirit of God and the mind of man, I will build the brotherhood of the kingdom." Now, the other half of Peter's confession was an error. Jesus was not the Messiah. So he just talked about truth. Isn't that so typical of a human being who sees truth? Half truth, half false. He said you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. That's a classic example, I think, of internal revelation. Now, I think Peter had known that for a long time, but I don't think he discovered it consciously until that moment. I think it did make for some time. That's right. You see, the whole business of survival and the exploration of the universe is a two-way proposition. You are exploring, in the last analysis, God on the outside. And at the same time, you'll be exploring the depth of the fragment of God on the inside who lives within you. And I don't think you're ever going to get to the end of either one. Because while the adjuster is qualitatively limited, he's qualitatively one with the Father in divinity. And I think that qualitative exploration inside is going to take just as long as the qualitative and quantitative exploration is going to take on the outside. Example, when you fuse with your thought adjuster, one of the things the adjuster contributes to the new partnership is past eternal memory. But I don't think you can appreciate this. You haven't got the capacity. Now, if you've lived 1,000,000 years, yeah, I think you can appreciate 1,000,000 years worth of it. So while you're going forward 1,000,000 years, I think you're also going backward 1,000,000 years. In your conscious ability to appropriate that which the adjuster offers you. You follow me? When you've lived 1,000,000,000 years, we'll skip 1,000,000,000, that's too short a time. When you've lived 1,000,000,000 years, then I think you can go back 1,000,000,000 years too. When you've lived 1,000,000,000 years, now that's an Absonite term. It's a hell of a big number. When you've lived 1,000,000,000 years, then you can really reach back quite a ways. But even so, that's not all past eternity. Sure. Mr. President, can we have a...
Matter of fact, there will be time for coffee.
Can we have a... Can we have a quick break? Spiritually, you're limited by the threshold of adjuster fusion. In other words, you can't progress, but just so far in the world, or you fuse to the adjuster and you remove. Now, you don't, that's not the limit of your spiritual progression, but it's the limit of planetary spiritual progression. But intellectually, absolutely no limit. They have never encountered a feeling on mind. I tell you why I think that is. Here's my theory. The Supreme Being has a growth limit in the present universe age, physically and spiritually. But the Supreme Mind is believed to have a master universe range of function. And that's why I don't believe you hit an intellectual field. At least I tend to associate those two statements of fact together. So even on a world settled in light and life, there is no static condition intellectually.
Will we not ever arrive on paradise?
Yes?
Then we don't have it made.
No, we'll be... When we arrive on paradise...
The paradise involved.
No, you just got the first ticket to the major office.
Well, you then go back down and help everybody out?
Yeah.
You've been going to test shows.
That's when you really get going.
Let me,
You're finally going to get to go tonight.
let me read you the last paragraph in the paper here.
Well, I'm trying to do is keep me from that there. I mean, I think I can.
On page 305, this is the end of the Paradise Ascent now. After the attainment of the supreme satisfaction and the fullness of worship, you are qualified for admission to the core of the finality. Your summoned career is well nigh finished, and the seventh Jubilee prepares for celebration. The first Jubilee marks the mortal agreement with the thought adjuster, when the purpose to survive was sealed. The second was the awakening in the Morancha light. The third was fusion with the thought adjuster. The fourth was the awakening in Havona. The fifth celebrated the finding of the Universal Father. And the sixth Jubilee was the occasion of the Paradise awakening from the final transit slumber of time. The seventh Jubilee marks the entrance into the mortal finality core and the beginning of the eternity service. The attainment of the seventh stage of spirit realization by a finality, you're only a sixth stage being, will probably signalize the celebration of the first of the Jubilees of eternity. And thus ends the story of the Paradise Fraternity, the highest order of all the ministering spirits, those beings who, as the universal class, ever attend you from the world of your origin until you are finally bidden farewell by the conductors of worship as you take the Trinity Oath of Eternity and are mustered into the mortal core of the finality. The endless service of the Paradise Trinity is about to begin. And now, the finality is face to face with the challenge of God the Ultimate. Well, look, one of the things I'm trying to do in this study of the master universe is to get a feeling and to transmit a feeling. How much bigger God the Ultimate is than God the Supreme. Big as is the Supreme Being. And all I can say is this: if the whole Paradise Ascent and the settling of the super universes could be done in about a second's time, it would take 4 months to find God the Ultimate.
That doesn't minimize the concept.
No, not really.
But it's sure that's a lunacy. You're thinking.
Well, this is a challenge of an altogether different magnitude.
Very sharp, and you're able to even consider this book, you just kind of on first day.
That's right. Now, actually, here's what happens. As a finaliter, you spend some time on Paradise. You get acquainted. I don't think you're in the core, but I doubt very much that you're in the company yet. You haven't been organized within the core. I think you enjoy residential Paradise as a finality. I think you re-explore Havona. Finaliters at their workshops. I think you vacation on the Friendly. So you have a time off. And then one day, you get summoned to Paradise, and you're organized into a finality company with about 1,000 units. Your peers. Then you begin the big circuit of the seven super universe. You see, all of our experience was in super universe number 7. And we will serve in the other 6 before we ever come back here. Because each of these super universes is permeated by one of the master spirits. And our experience in that super universe qualifies us to make a new approach to God from that perspective. And not until we have made the complete circuit of all 7 as finalities have we begun to exhaust the finite possibilities for the comprehension of the universal thought. There are 7 basic viewpoints or perspectives from which we can view God as finite. And by serving in each super universe, we acquire something of that perspective, so that we augment the 7th perspective to the 1st, then the 2nd, and the 3rd, and the 4th. So even on a finite level, we've got a lot left to do.
When God is agreeing with that side, their greatest group of beings is just the beings or
Mm-hmm.
You mean just technically speaking, it's immediately affected.
Now, will they be able to recognize God as supreme until they have traversed the other super universes?
Right, supreme, yes.
We know this part. When any of us find it, all of us will find it. Now, I've done some thinking about this. I thought of the transitional difficulties to be encountered as the 7th super universe is near completion. For example, let's take this on a local universe level, a little more wieldy. We're told that when a planet passes, I think it's the 3rd stage of light and life, if you're born on such a world, then you have to go back and serve on more primitive worlds to make up for your deficiencies. Well, what are you going to do when your local universe runs out of these primitive worlds? That's your question all over again. And, well, when there aren't any worlds that aren't settling like that, this happens. Because someday the whole local universe will be settled. No, they'll stop finding life on worlds sometime in the local universe. There comes a time when they find life on the last world in the local universe. And then there comes a time when that planet is settled in life on, the junior planet. And then there aren't any more primitive worlds that you can get experience in.
You don't think all planets will be changing worlds?
No, because we know that there are local universes that are settled in life on, and they contain no primitive worlds. This is hard for us.
But not only there'll be no more local universes.
Eventually, they'll start commissioning to return. They're only going to be settled themselves in local universe.
Why do you think that'll make it?
Yeah, it's not a constant.
Well, what happens then?
What Burke was saying is as the 10 years completion, the machinery, the old machinery won't work anymore. And you're right, Burke, it won't. And just exactly how they're going to bridge this transitional period, I don't know. But near the end of the present universe age, some of the things which have been characteristic of this universe age will no longer be characteristic. Now here is a part of the answer. This I developed in the story. You know, there's a quiet zone between space levels. I think there's a quiet time between universe ages. I think that the end of the second age does not witness the immediate dawn of the third age. I think there's a period during which we consolidate the present age. The supreme being is here, and nobody's gone out into the first outer space level. These finalities have a chance to make at least a token circuit after they founded the thing. This is again unusual. Everything gets balanced out and caught up. But I think...
Creation itself is?
Yeah. Almost creation. No more new worlds. We'll come to that in a minute. At any rate, they consolidate all the ragtag is and start to rotate. What happens on a planet, I would give a lot to know. Because I don't quite see how human beings can make it to the far finality. Because when the Supreme Being has completed his evolution, finite experience has come to an end. And this applies to human beings on worlds settled in light and life. Because you can't have finite experience except the Supreme Being is incomplete and growing. Now, they're still going to be human beings, but they're going to be post-finite experience human beings. What those human beings are like passes my imagination. I've even wanted the procreation to keep on. Yeah. I don't know.
They're going to be kids. They'll be limited. They will not have full participation in the rest of the thing.
They'll have no participation in the none whatsoever.
That's what you got right.
Yes, because he isn't growing anymore. You see, Leona, what we call growth and experience, and we think it's natural, normal, and eternal. It isn't. It's natural and normal to perfectly in his age. What? During which the Supreme Being is growing. And when he stops growing, then growth as we know it and experience it will be a path to death.
That doesn't mean he will really stop growing.
He will stop
Then
growing.
he will have,
He will stop growing in the sense that he's now growing.
yeah.
He'll be beginning post-finite growth. But there'll be no more finite experience.
Patience to tell her that there'll be something new coming up.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
right.
that.
Abstinent growth will.
I know.
Abstinent growth will take place. Yeah. You see, this thing can come to an end because it is finite. It has a limit. And while that limit is very remote, it is attainable. Anything which has a finite limit can be reached, given enough time.
Yeah.
And what worlds like this are going to be like, I just can't imagine. I thought about it. The papers question whether such mortals will be destined to explore the finality. Or will they become more like the Vona natives?
They will not. Wouldn't you think?
I'm inclined to think so, yes. Something like that.
Well, there's a fourth, and then the remaining outer space levels are I cannot see why these couldn't function in some capacity. Not necessarily criminal, but now they
Yeah.
at this moment.
I agree. These are going to be training worlds for outer space.
I mean, they should get some training there.
I think so.
I think these planets,
In the next universe age.
in the next universe age, they will not be utilized for the same thing they're now.
But you know that a creature born after the Supreme Being is actualized isn't going to have the authority and the seniority that Grand Panda has.
No?
How do you know there's going to be any born after he's actualized?
That's a good question.
I
No one
don't
can
know.
answer that
How do you
question.
know? You postulating something that's you.
I don't know.
You don't
But
know.
I say,
There
should
might
they
be
be, they
another
wouldn't
mortal,
know.
not me.
These are wonderful questions.
No,
No one
no,
has the
no.
answer.
Well, I'm confused. We're reaching the time now at the end of this universe where we got to there will be some beings still on this planet.
Yes,
And this planet will age with life.
it's been there for a long time. It's in the 7th stage. That's all
Well,
I
we
like.
would say that sometimes now, are they going to be around to this whole attempt that we're making? Well, they won't go to it, actually. Well,
They
there's
can't.
no necessity on it.
They can't
Will
do
they
it.
become universal citizens and go on to traveling citizens?
Not as we do it, no. Impossible.
It'll be a shortcut.
They might be given something more. I don't like the word robbed. They will be denied this, but they might have something in
Well,
common.
let's put it this
You
way.
don't ever have the experience that we have. This long experience.
That's
They'll be
right.
born smart.
We're fortunate.
But we were denied the experience of the Hirono native who was created perfect.
Yes, but I think we've got more than we've got.
I agree.
Maybe the next guy back it up a bit, he's got.
I don't see how you could, with this plan,
No.
with the local use.
I agree with you. But I don't see how it can go on if it comes to an end.
I don't either. But when it does come to this, what's going to happen?
You got me.
I don't know.
I'm back into a corner now. I don't know. I've
Are
debated.
they going to be flat out or what?
The papers raise that question and don't answer. Will appropriation keep on? Will debt keep on?
You mean the
On the planet, on the inhabited world level? I assume, JB, let's say this happened on Tuesday morning, February 11th. And this world has got a population, a sensible population of, let's say, 1 billion people. Not crowded, comfortable. And these are wonderful people, tremendous intellect, wonderful spiritual people. And all of a sudden, the Supreme Being is here. And here are these 1 billion people. And this planet is a we call it heaven, a utopia. There's no conflict, no problem. Education is excellent. Income tax is low. And
Employment is full.
that's right. And
Sounds awful bad.
to me it does too. Well, we wouldn't fit that world over here now. But if we'd been born into that world, we consider it would be natural.
Maybe sound like what we think out there.
Yes. I would like to know what this happens at high noon, Tuesday, February 11th. It's ended. The total is taken off and written down. They aren't putting any more figures in there now. It's completed then. The afternoon is different from the morning. But I don't know how.
Well,
There's a
God,
whole thing in the Bible that says the last will be first. Everybody will be free and equal, and then the person that maybe we can do it in the last time.
And again, maybe this quiet period is part of the end. Maybe here's how they even things out. It's a lot easier.
Maybe we take a billion years.
Could be. To me, this quiet period could be 10
I love that quiet.
Uh-huh.
Peace. I like peace.
You mean at that time?
That's it.
I don't know either. You see, the universe is in transition now, from the second to the third age. I've got some ideas about the third age. We're living in the second age. The transitional period is in many ways more difficult to conceive than the third age is. The third age is when we invade outer space and open up. Yeah. This is a new deal. This is what a finale is going to work. That's right. They
Quit
stopped
playing with the text.
They stopped it at 750 years, but not in the first occupation. In other words, they let this subdivision get all the fields and all the sidewalks in.
I feel better.
They'll keep it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
You would tell it's so long.
Those that haven't made it have fixed it. It's just absolutely can't
You know.
for those to tell you.
That's right. Or maybe they may go around and do it in a faster way and get the best equivalent treatment.
They'll be like right in the
Yeah.
catch up with them.
Oh,
Well, they're gonna be bright, I think.
We may have a rest period.
No. Ever.
You know what I bet will happen at 1 o'clock? I bet the goddess will check that.
I don't know.
Who advocates?
Sex.
The goddess will check. Well, that date, 1 o'clock. What's her name?
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite. You can name it for several different things.
Sorry. No, I don't know.
Now that gives a pretty good function to a earth.
The only, I've done this in my studies, or more in the appendices. When I get out of ideas, I reason by analogy. And I think when we consider the planet, and I've got to deal with it somewhere in here, I'm going to go to the Mitsoniders for my analogy. They're not mortal. The only, I've done this in my studies, or more in the appendices. When I get out of ideas, I reason by analogy. And I think when we consider the planet, and I've got to deal with it somewhere in here, I'm going to go to the Mitsoniders for my analogy. They're not mortal. They're not immortal. They're not mortal because they're not spirit. They're not immortal because they're not spirit themselves. They're not mortal because none has ever died. They reproduce on a controlled basis, and at the end of 1,000 years, they're translated. And if I had to offer anything by comparison, I would offer a Mitsonite planet as the advance notice of what this world is going to be like someday. I'd rather lean on that analogy than try and dream up something wholly new.
What's this one?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to be like that, but where are you?
We'll be long gone.
Bill? I'm stupid on this.
Mitsoniders are the one planet mutual position.
All right.
It's where a Mother Eve, it's where the Adamic strain has been upset instead of downset by crossover with the Melchizedek line. It's a combination Adamic Melchizedek blood.
They have a bloodstream lineage.
Yeah.
They're not an eventuated group.
No.
Oh, well, good. That's
The father of this race is a Melchizedek life carrier. The mother of this race is an Eve. And their children, well, they're just unclassified. The Melchizedek speaks that these children, these Mitsoniders, someday will be indwelt by the spirit of obscenity coming from God the Ultimate.
What do you mean when you say in 1,000 years they'll be translated? To what?
They're translated to the Phenolitic world in the Near East and Salvation.
And there,
They take up
the
residence.
function isn't discussed.
No. Now, in the later days of, in the later era of light and life, these Mitsoniders become functional in the local universe. And they act as teachers with the Trinity.
With it, not the source.
Yes, they could. But they're real superhuman beings. Now, they're fluctuating beings until they're translated, and they decide that they're called fluctuation. They're pretty potent creatures. Whenever you're taken off the planet, you lose the power of fluctuation. You're moved by translation. For example, all the children of Adam and Eve, and all the Adamites that volunteered to leave after the fall, lost their power of fluctuation. There's no fluctuation in the higher world.
Well, here, they have children only before they come to this one.
That's right. But when they're translated from their planet, then they stop fluctuating.
But they were translated down here.
Yes.
Into,
Yeah, that word's thrown down, but not thrown down.
They just tell you how the children
Yes.
they're able to.
I think they're falling.
Yes. From our system, yes.
It's very interesting.
These material tongues are really consist on three levels. In each local system, there's the original pair, who were personally created by Michael. And they would be distinctly different because they would have no belly button. because they never was sent us that or so. Yeah.
Who's your house?
The original Adam and the original Eve.
Well, I was looking at about it.
The Eve is indistinguishable, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It doesn't say that in the paper. If it knew it's obvious, they wouldn't have
They're
it.
handmade.
And
Probably fake.
no,
They're facts, really.
this is Adam and Eve of Sethanius. And they are unconditionally immortal, just like the Lenomidae. They'd have to be blotted out of existence by adjudicational action. When they procreate, or when their children procreate, they produce beings of conditional immortality. Now these are the folks of the plural sons and daughters that are born under Israel. They retain immortality so long as they don't rebel, so long as they maintain functional contact with the mind circuits of the local universe. If they lose that contact, they can die. A certain percentage of these material sons volunteer to serve as planetary Adams and Eve, as did ours. They have private names upon Jerusalem, but when they come down here on earth, they take their generic name, the name of their original ancestors, Adam and Eve of Eurasia. I don't know what their names were on Jerusalem. I'm sure they weren't Adam and Eve, because there's a lot of them. When they come down here, they retain their conditional immortality, but they lose the capacity to beget conditionally immortal sons and daughters. Their children are all mortal beings, long lives but mortal. Now, in the era of light and life, they might be joined by other material sons and daughters from Jerusalem. But those beings would never be brought down here as procreating beings. They would be deprived of their powers of procreation when they served on the planet. See, they only want to mix the germplasm once. If they're removed from the planet by death or by translation, again they lose their procreative powers.
So if they progress up and then come back,
They never do that.
well, what was they keep talking about that?
Midsommar.
You said on the descent, they can be changed.
As the planetary Adam and Eve.
Oh, as these,
Because they're designed to found a race of. Now later on in the era of light and life, other Adams and Eve, other material sons of daughters, being elected to serve on the planet, but they would serve as corporeal but non-reproducing beings. He's a real fussy about germplasm. You want me to describe a normal planet? Let me tell you a story. This is a story of a young man who lived on a normal world. They haven't yet had a patrol from like people. But theirs is an advanced world. They're getting ready. They had a magic series. No, they haven't yet. So they're getting ready for magic series. And they're in a state of pretty high civilization. There hasn't been a war in 28,000 years. And their physical sciences are pretty well advanced. And this young man, his name is Rame. Not a strange name, but not one of our names. Rame. And he has just gotten a letter. It's called the Trust Seal. And he stood a competitive examination. And this letter informs him that he has won an elite scholarship. And he's all excited. In fact, he's all shook up. And this authorizes him to complete his university studies at the Garden University in East for the next 6 years. And he's real excited. And he gets on the monorail going across town because he wants to talk to his grandfather. Because his grandfather had a music class. And the old man is pretty hale and hearty, but he's relatively young. He's only 120 years old. He retired about 3 years earlier. Got some hope to retire in 2025. And I might as well make it a good story. And so the young man comes barging in, and the old boy sitting in his study reading. And he says, "Look, Dad, they're going to read this stuff." I said, "Well, no," he said, "isn't that fine? Isn't that fine?" He says, "Listen." Huh?
I was ready.
He said, "Look," he said, "you had one of these." "No, thank you." Years and years ago. He said, "But like?" "What's it like?" He said. "Well," he said, "it's very wonderful. It's very beautiful. They've got some teaching methods over there that they still haven't gotten out in the outlying university. He said, you will learn in 6 years what you might spend 15 years in elsewhere. The instruction is different." And he said, "You'll be thrilled to deceive you." The young man broke down and he said, "Well, tell me," he said, "this bad and mean. They don't die." "Oh," he said, "they don't die." "Well, how do you know?" "Well, now," he said, "when I went there." He said, "That's over 100 years ago. I found them. And they were in the prime of life, acting as gracious fathers of their garden faith." And he said, "My great-grandfather also had an interest in it. And I talked to him when he was an old man. You and he were talking to me. And he told me that he found him in the prime of life. And son," he said, "you will find it. Just as I found it. But what keeps them alive then? Very much. Greed. To think I'm going to be." The old man lit his pipe again. He says, "Well," he said, "let me tell you something. Eden is wonderful. But if you ever have a chance when you're there, beyond the easterly mountains lies another city. The oldest city in the sun. The city of the faith. And you should visit that city. You see, we don't know. We don't have anything. We have no signs. We have no proof of immortality. We have no ancient Eden, which is even then overshadowed by Dalmatia, which is more ancient, where the corporeal staff of strength date from the time of the arrival of Adam. They're the children of the original staff who departed. We have none of these signs. And that's why we're called Agendavi, which means we can believe without any proof, which in essence is what Jesus said to Thomas in the upper chamber when Thomas went out. I just got through saying I wouldn't believe it unless I could put my fingers in the nail holes in the hands and then Jesus appeared. And Thomas knelt and believed. And Jesus made that famous remark, "Thomas," he said, "you have perceived and so you believe." But blessed were they in the who believe, so they see not. So he was doing it.
No, this is all you.
Oh, normally, let's not say Caligazi, let's say planetary presence. Caligazi is kind of a dirty word. Normally, when the planets are settled in light and light, that's when the sin and the future suns are bidding farewell to the planet. Then they bring down to this planet the Merachi temple. This is built by the Merachi powers of the elders. And it's not exactly material, but it's not immaterial either. And it can be made visible to the people of Earth, just as Jesus was made visible after his after his resurrection in the last days. And the first thing that happens in that temple, the paradise before us is turned into that planetary. And there in the presence of the planetary authority, he proclaims the planetary prince, planetary sovereign. In other words, he gives to the planetary prince the very thing that Caligastia was telling us to do. The prince eventually becomes the sovereign. That's right, good news. And Adam and Eve function, you might say, as joint prime ministers serving the invisible God.
Now, is the sovereign visible when
He can be made visible in one of the things. Yes. And from the Mars temple and from the subsidiary captives getting all over the world. No. You could have an entirely different kind of planetary government. Eventually, Adam and Eve leave the planet farther along the station of life and life, and their place is taken by a human elected chief executive who serves for 25 years. They tell us that it is the whole principle of Adam and Eve that makes kings and queens acceptable on the planet. And they say kings and queens are very successful when the king is Adam, when the queen is Eve, and when they're serving and invisible in one of those planetary bodies. It works very well. You see, we've missed a lot. Think what it would mean to have Eden. And don't think of Eden as just a garden. Think of it as a garden city, a university city. And then there would be the city of the prince, too. Think how easy it is to believe when you have so much that you can see. Well, we wouldn't know what to do with those luxury cities. There'd all be one people. One language. You see, there would be a much higher people in New York. Because the first thing they do is they shoot for a 50% amalgamation with Adam's blood.